For more insights, let's go to Kamal Alam. Currently, he's a visiting fellow at the Royal United Services Institute in London. Previously, he worked at the Syrian Institute for Strategic Studies in Damascus. Kamal, break things down for us. What do these strikes mean in the short term and long term? And what are you hearing from the people you know there in Damascus?
I think in the short run, these strikes are basically for the US, French, and British leaders to pat each other on the back and said they've done something in the war to make themselves relevant. They have extremely little strategic value, if any. And as far as residents in Damascus go, they're breathing a sigh of relief because they were expecting something bigger and more strategic. So they feel that they can breathe easy now. And at the same time, the Syrian governments feel very confident that the Americans are not coming after them because President Trump and Theresa May have made it clear this is not about regime change or interfering in domestic Syrian political structure. This was just to send a message. So the Syrian government are feeling very confident, whilst the Western capitals, I think, are feeling that they've done what they think they could do to make themselves feel better.
British Prime Minister Theresa May says the strikes were legally and morally right. What are your thoughts on that?
I think from a legal perspective, they think that they have a duty to act if chemical weapons have been used. In this case, the British and the Americans feel they have been used. So morally as well, I think there has been support for the strikes in most of the political circles in the US and UK. Of course, there has been some opposition as well. But the British Prime Minister, by and large, has support from her party and some of the opposition as well.
When Trump went on the air Friday night, our time, he said he would respond with additional economic and diplomatic measures. What do you think the Trump strategy is with regards to Syria?
I think Trump's overall strategy is not to do much. He announced a week or two ago that he wants to pull all US troops from Syria. And we must remember a year ago as well, Trump said he's not interested in regime change and nation building. So Trump's overall strategy is to make sure ISIS is diminished and defeated, and he wants to quit Syria. He doesn't want to prolong or entangle America any further. So he might announce sanctions, which again are more targeted towards Russia than Syria. So I think as far as Syria is concerned, Trump is quite clear. He does not want to get involved beyond just making sure ISIS is defeated.
So given that, where do things go, or how do they move forward in Syria, do you think?
I think things will continue the way they are in Syria, which means that the Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad, will get stronger as every week goes by, and the Russians will keep supporting him. The Syrian Arab Army are retaking territory almost every week. They've, of course, taken Ghouta. Their eyes are now towards other parts of Damascus, which they don't control, like the Yarmouk refugee camp, which is under al-Qaeda control, and also perhaps the southern city of Deraa. And then finally, they'll aim towards Idlib in the north. So the war, the trajectory of the Syrian war will remain as it is for the last 1.5 years, which is moving towards a complete Syrian government victory and President Assad being firmly in control. And there's very little strikes would do to change any of that.
And how long do you think they'll continue to prosecute the war before we'll see a conclusion?
I think it'll be probably another year at least. It's hard to make predictions like this because this war has been going on for 7 years with no end to sight. But one can say for the last 18 months, the Syrian government have consolidated their control and retaking territory. The most productive aspect of this war has been the cooperation between Turkey, Iran and Russia, which we call the de-escalation zone or the Astana Peace Accords. So I think there are some positive signs, and before these airstrikes and the alleged chemical weapon attacks, most people were talking about the end game in Syria. And the end game in Syria looks like the Syrian government retaking most of the territory and the Russians, the Turks and the Iranians coming to some kind of political settlement which allows President Assad to stay in power as well as allowing some form of opposition to exist in the north.
Kamal Alam joining us from London. Thanks so much for your observation.